Hey, soul survivors, we're going to talk about the dismissive versus the fearful avoidant. A lot of people confuse avoidance with narcissists. So let's get into the differences between avoidance. So both of them, they are trying to avoid intimacy and vulnerability, but the underlying motivations and behaviors are quite different. So we're going to talk about the key differences, behaviors, and examples for each. So when you're dealing with a dismissive avoidant, their core fear is losing independence or being overwhelmed by others. And in contrast, you have your fearful avoidant. Their core fear is intimacy and rejection, often stemming from past trauma. The dismissive avoidant with emotional regulation, they suppress emotions and disconnect from vulnerability versus the fearful who experiences intense emotions but struggles to regulate them. And the way that they approach relationships, DA, which is the dismissive avoidant, they value self-sufficiency. They avoid deep emotional connections. FA, fearful avoidant, they crave intimacy, but they're terrified of being hurt or abandoned. So they just kind of back away. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you are with them, they often destroy relationships because of the way they handle relationships. So behavioral patterns, DAs, distant, aloof, unresponsive, avoid emotional engagement. But your FA is hot and cold. They alternate between seeking closeness and pushing others away. And the root cause for a DA is often linked to childhood neglect or emotionally unavailable caregivers. The FA is often linked to inconsistent caregiving or childhood trauma or abuse. Now, they go through different phases. So, the dismissive avoidant, the early stages of the relationship, they appear charming, confident, independent, keeps relationship casual and avoids the vulnerability. They may seem detached or uninterested in deep emotional conversation. So, as an example, after a few dates, they avoid personal questions or they change the subject if things are getting too deep, saying, I don't like talking about the past or some type of example like that. During conflict, the DA, they will withdraw or stonewall when issues arise. They'll dismiss their partner's emotions, labeling them as too dramatic or needy. So when a partner expresses feelings of neglect, they respond with, why are you making such a big deal of this? Everything is fine. So they invalidate any feelings you have. They don't talk through things, which would just solve the problem. And the long-term patterns, DA, they maintain emotional distance even in those long-term relationships. And they'll focus more on personal goals and hobbies as opposed to being with you. And an example, they prefer spending time alone after work instead of discussing their day with their partner. And they'll say things like, I just need my space. And they'll go about their own life, even though you guys are together. Now, the fearful avoidant, early stages of the relationship, they show intense interest and passion at first, appearing highly engaged. Quickly, they become anxious about being hurt or rejected. So they can say things like, I'm not sure I'm ready for this. It's moving too fast. They may seem deeply attached, though, but suddenly pull back. And during conflict, they alternate between attacking and withdrawing. They react defensively, often accusing the partner of not caring enough. So the FA1, the partner, let's say, forgets an anniversary, they might lash out, you don't love me. And then they retreat and avoid communication for days sometimes. And that's it's kind of like a silent treatment. So it does get confusing. Is it a narcissist? Is it dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant? And there can also be comorbidities. You can also have NPD along with this. So in the long term, they display a push or pull dynamic, get close but withdraw when intimacy feels threatening. They'll struggle with trust, often misinterpret their partner's actions. So let's say a few months go by, full of closeness. They might start finding excuses to avoid spending time together. And they may say things like, I need to focus on myself right now. You think things are going good, and all of a sudden they're pulling back. Now, In daily life, the DA, the dismissive, at work, they'll prioritize career over relationships. They have no problem staying late, and sometimes they purposely do this to avoid emotional conversations that may happen at home. They prefer one-on-one interactions, but they avoid personal topics, keeping conversations at a surface level. Their parenting style, they may provide material support, but struggle to express warmth and affection. The fearful, though, at work, they'll struggle with authority figures. They crave validation, but fear criticism. In the social settings, they can be outgoing, but often retreat or become defensive if they feel judged. And their parenting styles, they will start to alternate between overly involved and withdrawing due to their own emotional struggles. Key phrases that they will use. So the dismissive avoidant. If the partner wants to talk, they'll say, can we not make everything so emotional? During a conflict, DA, you're overthinking this. It's not a big deal. Or even after closeness, I just need some time to myself. As opposed to the fearful, where if you want to talk with them, they're like, why do you always think I'll let you down? I knew you'd leave me eventually. And they'll say that during a conflict. And after closeness, they'll say things like, I don't know if I can trust you not to hurt me. So why is it important to understand these styles? For relationships, when you know these patterns, you can kind of help navigate those triggers, improve communication, set realistic expectations. And if it's for self-growth, by knowing the underlying fears, it helps to work towards a secure attachment and build healthier connections. So being with an avoidant is a pretty lonely relationship because they always go through these cycles where they're close. It's like a push-pull, and it'll bring out anxiousness if you're not already anxious. So the more anxious you get, the more that they retreat, and it can be quite damaging mentally to be in a relationship with them. So if you found this information helpful, please hit that like button or share if it'll help someone you know. One-on-ones are available. Topic requests are always welcome, and I'll see you soon.